Tommy Lynn Sells, an infamous figure linked to severe crimes across Texas, was convicted for one murder, but investigations suggest his involvement in many more, potentially up to 22 or beyond. Sells himself vaguely acknowledged a high number of victims.
I like to use a knife. Gun is too violent, just fit my hand well.
His background was troubled, tainted by early exposure to substances and challenging circumstances from a young age. His life took a dark turn as he traveled the country, leaving a trail of crimes in his wake. Among his acknowledged acts was a tragic New Year's Eve event in 1999.
How many people have you killed?
Lord, I don't know.
10?
Yeah,
20?
probably.
30?
It's up there.
50?
But see, I'm not Billy the Kid making notches on my holster, so I know it's been a lot. First time I killed somebody, it was such a rush. It was just like that shot of dope. Every time I did it, it was that rush again. And I started chasing that high.
You also killed children.
Some get killed, yes.
Now, why would that happen?
I didn't want them to live through the pain I lived through.
Sells's motivations for his actions were deeply disturbing, as he claimed to find a weird satisfaction in them.
I suffer more here than I'll ever suffer in that grave. I have to live with it every day now. When they kill me, at least I'll be free then.
Ultimately, Sells faced the consequences of his actions, ending his life in 2014 due to legal proceedings. In the courtroom drama involving the tragic case of Dylann Alvarez, her mother faced 19-year-old Frank DeLeon Jr., who was responsible for fatally shooting her 16-year-old daughter 22 times. The incident occurred on January 11, 2023, as Dylann was out walking her dog in the middle of a failing relationship with Frank, who was quickly arrested following the crime. The courtroom tension peaked when Dylann's mother, during her statement, was met with a smirk from Frank, igniting a fiery response. Before she could reach him, the situation escalated rapidly. Dylann's uncle lunged at Frank from the audience, which provoked Frank's mother to defend her son by attacking Dylann's mother. This action encouraged Dylann's aunt to join the fight, targeting Frank's mother. Law enforcement quickly intervened, separating the families and restoring order. Following the altercation, Dylann's mother addressed the media, expressing her emotions and the chaos that had unfolded.
It was wrong of me. That was wrong of us because we're not monsters. But it's so much hate because I want my daughter back. And what he did it was horrible. Seeing my daughter there and looking at him that he did that and he's laughing in my face. It was very wrong and I'm so sorry for that.
At the conclusion of this heart-wrenching saga, Frank accepted a plea deal, resulting in a 45-year prison sentence. Thanks to the quick response of deputies, further chaos was prevented. In an intense courtroom in Utah, 25-year-old Tristan Laro stood accused of the first-degree murder of his 19-year-old wife, Misty Laro, on August 23, 2009. The tragic event unfolded in their home, leading to Tristan's subsequent arrest. As the trial progressed, an emotional moment arrived when Misty's brother, Jason Wilson, stepped up to the podium to share a victim impact statement, not before casting a judging look towards Tristan. The gravity of Tristan's actions was clear, yet his demeanor in court was shockingly indifferent. As Jason detailed the deep impact his sister's murder had on him, Tristan seemed detached, idly rocking back and forth in his chair. The emotional weight of Jason's words peaked when he directed his grief and anger towards Tristan, hoping to break through his blunt indifference. Despite the tense atmosphere and Jason's visible frustration, deputies were quick to intervene, preventing any escalation. Their quick action ensured that order was maintained in the courtroom. Ultimately, justice was served as Tristan received a sentence of 15 years to life in prison, closing a tragic chapter for the Laro and Wilson families. Jose Govea Jimenez, a convicted drug lord linked to a Mexican cartel, was at the center of a major heroin trafficking operation in Columbus, bringing in up to 100 kilos of heroin every month. The investigation led to the seizure of 25 kilos of heroin, valued at about $2.5 million. Jimenez pleaded guilty to charges of trafficking and engaging in corrupt activity and was brought before the Franklin County Courthouse for sentencing.
The ringleader of an organization that is so fear-inspiring that the people who come here from Mexico refuse to testify against it because they know as soon as they are born, their family will be murdered in Mexico.
Dressed in the plain khaki of prison garbage, Jimenez maintained a confident behavior as he entered the courtroom, offering a cold glare to the narcotics investigators present. The assistant prosecutor, Dan Stanley, emphasized Jimenez's significant role in the drug operation and the broader cartel's menacing influence.
He was bringing me the drugs to my house.
What kind of drugs?
Heroin.
How much?
1 kilo, and the last time 2 kilos.
As a protected witness shared testimony about her involvement in Jimenez's operation, Jimenez remained silent, his lack of emotion only broken by the occasional blink.
This has been overblown,
Y pido perdón por lo que yo he hecho.
and I apologize.
In a moment of obvious regret, Jimenez offered an apology in Spanish, a gesture that seemed barely sincere. This attempt was translated with more warmth in English, but Judge Kimberly Cocroft was not swayed, pointing out Jimenez's inflated portrayal of his innocence and affirming the severity of his crimes.
I'm surprised to hear you saying today that your participation is overblown. I was very intentional about explaining to you the statutory requirement for conviction.
Jimenez was sentenced to 21 years in prison, with the additional directive that he be deported upon completing his sentence. Despite the significant sentence, which sets his release when he's in his 70s, Jimenez's response was indifferent, exiting the courtroom with an air of non-cooperation. In the unfolding drama at the Houston County Superior Court, Dexter Lee Williams' sentencing becomes a battleground for the kingpin and those advocating on his behalf.
We talking about from me, Judge? You're holding what I said against my client?
I'm talking to Mr. Williams. I've heard everything.
Right, but you're holding, no, what other accusations? He didn't testify, so you're holding what I said.
I've heard everybody.
At 53, Williams faces the consequences of leading a formidable drug trafficking empire stretching from Mexico to Atlanta. His arrest, with 39 kilos of cocaine worth approximately $3.5 million, marked the end of a significant chapter in this illegal operation. Even in custody, Williams seemed detached from the seriousness of his situation, finding comfort in solitary laughter while seated in a police vehicle.
Son of a bitch, they thought me had passed. Should have never walked into that house.
In your case, it's not a mere possession case. It's not a mere struggle that you have with an addiction that you personally have. It is not that. You are, I would say, you are feeding the addiction that they're battling with, and you are profiting from there.
The moment of reckoning comes from the harsh Judge Bo Adams, whose words cut through the courtroom with the sharpness of a knife. Yet, Williams remains a mystery, showing an unsettling calmness.
You were convicted not because the court is underhanded or corrupted or is corrupt or anything like that.
The tension increases as Wanda Jackson, Williams's defense attorney, finds herself at odds with the judge's narrative, her frustration intense in every sigh and lean. This emotional buildup reaches a peak when Williams and Jackson exchange a knowing glance, a silent acknowledgement that the scales of justice are tipping unfavorably.
We talking about from me, Judge? You're holding what I said against my client?
I'm talking to Mr. Williams. I've heard everything.
Right, but you're holding, no, what other accusations? He didn't testify, so you're holding what I said.
I've heard everybody. I've heard it all.
Who else said
I've
it?
heard it all. I've heard it all. It's my time. Mr. Williams, you're convicted not because I'm corrupt or underhanded, or law enforcement is racist, or the jury had unauthorized contact with witnesses. You're convicted because you're guilty. That's the plain and simple truth of it. The evidence would show that, the wiretaps show that, and at the end of it all, I find that I would say you should be sentenced for your involvement, your participation in this racketeering enterprise and you're acquiring significant sums of money.
Jackson's bold confrontation with Judge Adams marks a rare courtroom spectacle, challenging the judge's critique of her defense strategy. Despite her eagerness, the judge remains unmoved, proceeding with his address and ultimately delivering a crushing 40-year sentence without the possibility of parole to Williams.
And at the end of it all, for count one, I will sentence Mr. Williams to 20 years to serve. Count two, I will sentence him to 20 years. And that will be consecutive to count one, and I'm going to require that be served. 20 years to serve. Count three, I already indicated that is merged with count one. So that'll be the sentence of the court. That'll be the sentence of the court as a result of...
Thank you, may be excused.
All right.
Jackson's reaction is different. Her abrupt departure from the courtroom before the judge concludes, his statement speaks volumes, leaving a lasting impression of a defiant stand against a supposed injustice. In an intense legal battle within Antrim County, northern Michigan, Wallace Bigger found himself at the center of a major prescription drug operation. Bigger was accused of moving thousands of morphine pills and other controlled substances. These medications, sourced from a doctor in Saginaw, were sold across various locations in the county. Despite the substantial revenue, estimated at over $20,000, Bigger lived in near poverty, residing in a decrepit camper van on his daughter's property.
I believe the judge is biased, and I said from the start, Antrim County would not to be a fair trial.
Throughout his trial, the 71-year-old refused to accept guilt, frequently criticizing his legal representation and the justice system at large. He attempted to dismiss his attorney multiple times and alleged a conspiracy by law enforcement to frame him. Ultimately, he was found guilty of operating a criminal enterprise, a grave offense under Michigan's strict racketeering statutes.
Live a big lifestyle where you're sitting out next to the cement pond with the BMW parked in the driveway? No, you weren't. You lived a pretty crummy lifestyle, from time to time, in a camper in your daughter's front driveway, but it didn't stop you from being manipulative. It didn't stop you from abusing other people.
I did not sell drugs, and I will not.
During his sentencing hearing before Judge Philip Rogers, the courtroom atmosphere was tense. Judge Rogers did not shy away from detailing Bigger's miserable living conditions and his stubborn behavior.
I believe the judge is biased, and I said from the start, Antrim County would not to be a fair trial. And I did not get a fair trial. And I got a screwy lawyer.
As Bigger took the stand, he delivered remarks that left the courtroom in shock, stubbornly maintaining his innocence. He voiced severe grievances against his legal counsel and accused Judge Rogers of bias, insisting that his trial was unjust.
He was the primary provider of morphine during that time period within Antrim County. He kept going back to Saginaw and was getting 800 pills a month, bringing them back here. Hopefully his sentencing at the high end of the guidelines and the consecutive nature will send a message to anybody that may want to fill that vacuum that regardless of your age, there is a consequence if you are caught trafficking this quantity of controlled substance.
The prosecution, unmoved by Bigger's declarations, portrayed him as the main figure in Antrim County's illegal pill distribution network. They urged Judge Rogers to impose the most severe sentence possible, aiming to set an example to discourage similar criminals.
I am sentencing you to 180 to 360 months on charge number 1. On charge 2, the controlled substance delivery charge, 23 to 240 months. Charges 3 and 4, 23 to 240 months. On the maintaining a drug house, 16 to 24 months. And on conducting the criminal enterprise, that's 50 to 240 months.
Judge Rogers settled the proceedings by sentencing Bigger to a minimum of 20 years, a verdict that essentially guarantees Bigger will spend the rest of his life behind bars. Aaron Andrade, a 25-year-old involved in drug dealing, faced justice for his role in the tragic overdose death of 29-year-old Kristen Coutu. Just 2 days after leaving a drug rehabilitation center due to insurance restrictions, Coutu tragically lost her life. Unbeknownst to her, the heroin Andrade sold her was mixed with a lethal amount of fentanyl, leading to her untimely death.
Attorney General says it's the first time a drug dealer has been convicted of murder of someone who overdosed, a landmark case with many implications for how the state will prosecute dealers.
In a court proceeding marked with grief, Andrade entered a no-contest plea to second-degree murder, with a plea deal resulting in the dismissal of additional drug-related charges.
The state would have proven that what the defendant really sold Kristen Coutu was nearly pure fentanyl, a controlled substance like heroin or morphine, hundreds of times more toxic than heroin.
Are all of these facts true?
Yes, ma'am.
The hearing featured a heart-wrenching moment as Kristen Coutu's mother delivered a moving impact statement sharing the devastating news of her daughter's overdose, a moment that visibly moved everyone in the courtroom.
Cranston police officer standing there. All I could say repeatedly was, "Please don't tell me my daughter is dead. Please don't tell me my daughter is dead." It's okay. It's okay.
As family members mourned, visibly shaken by the gravity of the loss, Andrade's following address to the court was unexpectedly candid. He accepted full accountability for his actions, offering a sincere apology to the Coutu family and acknowledging the irreversible harm his actions caused.
I know I heard a lot of people, including her family and my family, because we're all going through this.
This defendant stands before you indicted on, among others, the count of murder for, as the state alleges, delivering a substance containing fentanyl which killed Kristen Coutu.
Despite Andrade's remorse, the judge, Kristen Rogers, delivered a strict verdict, 40 years with the condition that 20 years must be served. Charles Crosby found himself before the Clement County Court facing the consequences of his actions on charges of drug trafficking and corruption. At 35, Crosby's criminal activities ended in significant sentencing following his conviction on 12 counts related to the possession and intended distribution of heroin and cocaine worth $5,000 in New Richmond. This arrest came merely 4 months after Crosby was released from a previous sentence for heroin trafficking, displaying a pattern of stubborn criminal behavior that began when he was just 14.
Heroin is bad enough, but laced with fentanyl, it becomes a game of Russian roulette. And individuals like Charles Crosby provide the weapon, they provide the bullet, and they spin the chamber, pointing at the addict's head, and all the addict has to do is pull the trigger. That's who Charles Crosby is.
The hearing commenced with Assistant Prosecutor Darren Miller emphasizing the harmful impact of Crosby's actions on the community, highlighting the alarming increase in overdoses and drug-related fatalities associated with the excess fentanyl-laced heroin Crosby brought into the streets.
They would have black eyes or their face would be swollen, and I would ask them, how did this occur? And they would frankly tell me that Charles Crosby and his associates would beat them.
The courtroom was further shocked when Police Chief Randy Harvey detailed how Crosby exploited addicts, forcing them into selling his drugs under threat and violence. Despite the seriousness of the allegations and the evidence of his malicious tactics, Crosby displayed a disturbing indifference, merely rolling his eyes as his heinous strategies were exposed. His indifference continued, even as Judge Thomas Herman summarized his extensive criminal history before delivering a sentence of 20 years and 9 months in prison. Crosby's reaction to the sentencing highlighted his detachment and lack of remorse for his actions. In Duval County Courtroom, the Johnson brothers faced their moment of reckoning before Judge R. Anthony Salem after being found guilty of drug trafficking and possession. Their arrest was the result of a police operation targeting a known trap house on Jacksonville's east side, a case further compounded by drug enhancements due to their alleged leadership within the notorious 1200 Out East gang. A subtle exchange between Marquez and Rashad, a nod of mutual recognition, hinted at the strength of their bond amid the seriousness of their situation.
I often think about the things I could have done different as a parent. I know my sons could have had a better outcome in life.
And he's a family man?
He is.
And do you feel he's a good father?
He's a great father. Your Honor, I pray and ask the true merciful. I pray that there are some resources to help them grow.
As the sentencing phase unfolded, the Johnson family made emotional appeals for mercy, emphasizing the brothers' collective fatherhood of 7 children as a plea for leniency.
I don't know what kind of sentence you will hand out today, but I will ask that you be lenient towards me. I have a beautiful family, which includes 4 kids and a stepchild. I am not a bad person. I'm not a monster. I'm not a gamer. Just a human being who made mistakes.
Rashad's appeal to Judge Salem was one of remorse, casting himself as a flawed individual seeking redemption. Marquez, on the other hand, refuted any ties to gang activities, trying to distance himself from the allegations that had trapped them both.
And not leave as a menace, an animal, or a gang member, or in my community or anywhere else. And I just want to say I'm sorry to my family once again for putting me through the situation and letting them down.
Despite these personal pleas, the prosecution remained unmoved, pointing to the brothers' continued involvement in gang-related activities as evidence of their unwillingness to change.
They had the opportunity to better their lives after serving 3 years in the Florida State Prison, and they came back out and continued doing the same pattern of criminal activity that they'd been arrested so many times before for. They even moved out of their community. But instead of staying out of their community and getting jobs, the court has heard nothing from any of these witnesses about legal jobs that they had. They provided for their families financially, but how are they doing that? By selling drugs.
Standing together to face their sentence, the atmosphere in the courtroom was tense with anticipation. Judge Salem's decision brought a wave of shock and despair as he sentenced both Marquez and Rashad to 30 years in prison, a decision that echoed through the courtroom with the audible grief of their family and supporters.
You're adjudicated guilty, sentenced to 30 years Florida State Prison, with 581 days credit.
Yet, amid the heartache, the brothers' acceptance of their fate was intense. Rashad's farewell wave to his family, devoid of sadness, marked an emotional moment of resilience as they were led away. Shannon Fox Hamlin, 42, found herself at the center of a bond revocation hearing in Williamsburg, Kentucky, facing serious allegations of violating her probation conditions.
Can you take her for me, please? Motion is sustained.
Mr. Winchester, you've been fired. I won't, no. Mr. Winchester, please. I want my family back. I've changed.
In a turn of events that confused the courtroom, Hamlin declared at the podium that she was represented by none other than Jesus Christ, a claim that, despite its uniqueness, did not align with the legal qualifications required by the Kentucky State Bar. Judge Paul Winchester, taken aback by this statement, recommended the assistance of the public defender's office instead.
And who's representing you today?
I'm represented by Jesus Christ.
Well, I'm going to appoint Mr. Findale to represent you today.
I don't want Mr. Findale.
Well,
I have that right.
You don't get to choose. You don't get to choose.
Jesus is going to represent through me. I do not want legal counsel. I have the best counsel, Adam Howard, I've ever represented.
Okay, all right. So what do you want to say?
I want to say that I have lived hard, loved hard, played hard, but I've been saved and applied the blood. I'm pardoned through Jesus Christ, okay? Okay, I have stumbled and I have failed many times, and mercy's rained from that bench. Not because I deserved it, but because I'm sure somebody prayed, okay? I wanted to taste salvation and play over here too. I was riding the fence between me and you. God gave me a choice, and it's life or death, I kid you not. Do I look like the person that stood before you in August? Do I? I'm humble. I'm in a walk of shame.
The focus of the hearing was supposed to be on Hamlin's failure to report to her probation officer and her positive methamphetamine drug test from December 9th, 2016. However, Hamlin contested the accusations, associating her deliverance with her faith. Despite her defense, her probation officer was called to the stand, further complicating the proceedings as Hamlin continued to link her religious beliefs with her legal defense.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
Allegation is you failed to report to probation and parole. Allegation is you failed to report to probation and parole.
Okay, sir. I have nothing in this world.
All I need is an answer.
No.
Did you go? Okay.
I went to probation, yes I did. But the next 2 times I didn't have no right.
Okay, let me ask you another question.
Yes.
On December the 9th, 2016, you were given a drug test and you were positive for methamphetamine. And that was confirmed by a lab.
Saved by the blood.
Yes or no? Do you acknowledge that?
I acknowledge I'm saved by the blood. I don't use drugs, Your Honor. I do not use it.
You've already told me that. But back on December of 2016.
His paper says so, but I will not admit it. He said I could.
Are you denying the allegations in this motion?
Yes.
Back in December,
Did she test positives for drug use?
He's not telling the whole truth, Your Honor.
Okay.
You expect me to,
Let me
he
tell you
needs to
something. Now, you
too.
can ask him a question.
Okay, have
Can't
I not
preach
been in
to him.
contact with you on the phone, sir? When you called me and said the drug test came back methamphetamine, tell the truth, Shannon, what did I say?
I did not call you.
Brian Dees, you are a liar in the court of Winsburg. I promise
Okay,
you,
let me
Jesus
tell you
is
something. I
watching.
have to go by what the test
He
says.
is lying,
And
sir.
What I'm telling you is, I have to go by what the lab says.
Can I make
Doesn't
one
have anything to
mistake?
do with what he said.
Between me and you,
Okay.
prison is to reform me, right, to make me a good person for
Well,
society.
that
Is that
and to
correct?
keep you from breaking the law.
Okay. Well, do you believe that the blood applied by Jesus Christ can do more reform for me than Pee Wee Valley? Do you believe it can happen in 1 day, 1 minute, or 1 hour?
Well-
Sir, I'm sentenced to death. I'm going to die.
The situation escalated as Judge Winchester tried to regain control of the hearing, leading to Hamlin being ordered out of the courtroom. Her resistance and following altercation with a bailiff not only disrupted the proceedings, but also resulted in additional charges against her, including contempt of court, second-degree assault, resisting arrest, and second-degree disorderly conduct.
Can you take her for me, please? Motion is sustained.
Sir, no, I have the right to speak, okay?
And you have
No,
the
my
right
life
to
is at stake. I'm going to speak, please. No, I'm going to speak to
now.
this judge. No, I'm going to speak to you right now, Your Honor. My life is at stake. I'll die in prison.
Come on, yeah,
I have
come
a
on.
right to. I won't go. I won't go. No. Get me.
You need to go. You don't
No,
want me
I'm
to do
not.
that to you, okay?
You understand? I
You
won't.
need to go.
Mr. Winchester, please. I want my family back. I've changed. No, they take me Jesus like he's in their hiding on the house. I'm doing. Jesus, you said I wouldn't have to go, and I believe you go.
In the aftermath of this chaotic hearing, Hamlin's bond was revoked, and she faced an 8-year sentence in a Kentucky prison, significantly adding to her legal troubles due to her actions and the unforeseen chaos that unfolded in court. This is Michael Madison, a notorious serial murderer charged with multiple crimes, including 3 murder counts in Ohio. Over 2012 and 2013, Michael claimed the lives of 3 women before his capture. Michael understood the full extent of his actions before his initial court appearance.
Mr. Madison, I'm going to read to you the nature of the charges against you and summarize each one for you, as well as giving you the potential penalties. I know you've had a chance to speak with counsel. Is that correct, sir? Yes. All right. In the first charge, you're charged with aggravated murder in violation of Ohio Revised Code 2903.01. It states that on or about the 22nd day of July, you did purposely cause the death of an unidentified female while committing another felony. The offense was committed 1 week to 9 months prior to the finding of the body. That is a Jane Doe murder. The second murder is the same date, on or about the 22nd day of July. Michael Madison did purposely cause the death of an Angela Deskins while committing another felony. The offense was committed 3 weeks or a few weeks prior to the finding of the body. And then there's a third murder charge. On or about the 22nd day of July, Michael Madison did purposely cause the death of an unidentified female while committing another felony. The offense was committed 1 week to 1 month prior to the finding of the body. All of those are felonies of the first degree because they are aggravated murder. They are punishable by a possible death or life in prison and a $100,000 fine. You understand that?
As the court proceedings unfold, Van Terry, a grieving father of one of the victims, speaks to the judge.
How you doing, Your Honor? My name is Van Terry. Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this.
The atmosphere in the courtroom turned violent when Michael, displaying a disturbing lack of remorse, smirked at Van Terry, sparking a wave of outrage.
Taking my child.
The authorities swiftly intervened, bringing the courtroom back to order and allowing the legal process to proceed. The moment has arrived for the jury to deliver its verdict. After deliberation, Judge Nancy McDonnell announces the sentencing, following the jury's guidance.
We therefore unanimously find that the sentence of death should be imposed upon the defendant, Michael Madison.
I am struck by the sheer inhumanity of what one human being can do to not one, but 3 human beings. It is incomprehensible. You cajoled, lured, and deceived Shatisha Shealy, Angela Deskins, and Sherelda Terry to your apartment for your depraved purposes. You went on to abuse the corpses of these 3 victims. You stripped them from the waist down. You folded them in half, binding them so that their feet were up by their ears. You wrapped them in multiple layers of trash bags, and you discarded them. Upon consideration of the relevant evidence, the testimony exhibits admitted in mitigation, it is a judgment of this court that the aggravated circumstances of course of conduct, felony murder, kidnapping, felony murder, of which the defendant was convicted, outweigh the mitigating factors by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Accordingly, the sentence of death is imposed upon the defendant, Michael Madison, on counts 1, 4, and 7.
The sentencing provoked reactions from the victims' families. Meanwhile, Michael Madison awaits his execution behind bars. In the matter concerning Larry Nassar, who was accused of numerous counts of sexual misconduct, Nassar served as a medical professional at Michigan State University and for USA Gymnastics when law enforcement was alerted to his offenses. Yet, during the inquiries, Nassar presented an alternate narrative.
Why didn't she say something if she was feeling violated in any way, shape, and form? There was no communication.
Okay. Do you ever get aroused during these exams?
I shouldn't be getting during an exam.
Right.
Okay.
Well, this is why I'm talking to you about this, because this young girl and her mother both observed this on more than one occasion during treatment.
If there was arousal, it's. I mean, like it would be because of whatever. I don't know, but I'm not trying to.
Whatever. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
When you're a guy, sometimes you get.
Ultimately, the reality of his actions led to his arrest. In court, his survivors courageously testified, one following another.
I testified to let the world know that you are a repulsive liar. I am Jessica Tomashow, also known as Victim A. I was sexually assaulted by Larry Nassar when I was 9 and 12 years old. You broke and shattered a lot of girls. You manipulated us to trust you because you're a doctor, and doctors do no wrong, only heal. You are not a healer.
For a certain parent, Nassar's expressions of remorse and apologies were meaningless.
I don't know who you are now. Maybe I never knew. Maybe none of us did. But Larry, you did this to yourself, and you did this to us.
Inmate Nassar. That is what your name is. And don't you forget that.
And while we all are moving mountains, you, Larry, will have no choice but to sit in prison and wait to die.
And I said, are you ready to go to lunch? And she's like, no, Mom, I just want to go home. And I said, what's wrong? Are you in pain? And she said, Mom, I just want to go home. And I said, okay. So we got in the car, and I said, and she started bawling. And I said, Chelsea, tell me what's wrong. And she said, Mom, he put his and they weren't gloved. And I said, Chelsea, I was right there in the room. And she goes, you couldn't see what was going on, Mom. And she said, he hurt me. In 2009, she took her own life because she couldn't deal with the pain anymore. It'll be 10 years in March.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon. Would you do that? Yes or no?
No, sir.
Would you give me 1 minute?
You know that I can't do that. That's not how it is.
Well, I'm going to have to get someone.
Stay down. Stay down. I understand.
Let me have that son of a bitch.
I understand, but stay down.
I want that.
Stop fighting. Behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
I want that son of a bitch.
Put your hands behind your back.
I don't. Give me 1 minute with that pass through.
Yeah, go ahead. You're good. You're good.
What I'm feeling pales in comparison to the pain, trauma, and emotional destruction that all of you are feeling. There are no words that can describe the depth and breadth of how sorry I am for what has occurred. An acceptable apology.
When it was Nassar's turn to testify, he faced the consequences of his actions.
I find that you don't get it, that you're a danger. You remain a danger. I am a judge who believes in life and rehabilitation when rehabilitation is possible. I have many defendants come back here and show me the great things they've done in their lives after probation, after parole. I don't find that's possible with you. Your decision to assault was precise, calculated, manipulative, devious, despicable. I don't have to add words because your survivors have said all of that. I don't want to repeat it. Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I've just signed your death warrant. I need everyone to be quiet. I still have contempt powers. I told you I'm not nice. Thank you. That's all for the record.
Nassar is doomed to live out his remaining years behind bars. Gary Ridgeway, infamously known as the Green River Killer, faced numerous murder charges in Washington. He confessed to the murder of at least 48 individuals, mainly focusing on sex workers and vulnerable young women. Ridgeway's childhood was rough, shadowed by his parents' violent disputes. His frequent interactions with sex workers eventually led him to commit a series of abductions, murders, and the disposal of bodies in or near the Green River. The gravity of Ridgeway's crimes is terrible, and his behavior during the trial was equally disturbing. Arrested in 2003, Ridgeway admitted to his crimes and received a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
I killed the 48 women listed in the state's second amended information. I picked prostitutes as my victims because I thought I could kill as many of them as I wanted without getting caught. Is that true?
Yes.
And Mr. Ridgeway, is it your desire to plead guilty to the 48 charges of aggravated murder in the first degree because you believe that you are guilty of each of those offenses?
Yes.
The courtroom was charged with raw emotion as the families of the victims confronted him, expressing their grief and anger.
You had said your memory, when it comes to all of the women you took, was gone. Our memory is not. In your words, you said that they didn't mean anything to you, but she meant everything to us.
She was a mother, she was a wife, she was a sister, and we miss her.
I wish for him to have a long, suffering, cruel death.
He's gonna go to hell, and that's where he belongs.
Amidst the overwhelming anger and sorrow, a man named Robert Rule, whose daughter Linda Jane was one of Ridgeway's victims, chose a path of compassion.
To live up to what I believe, and that is what God says to do, and that's to forgive. And he doesn't say to forgive just certain people, he says to forgive all. So you are forgiven, sir.
Rule's act of forgiveness brought an unexpected reaction from Ridgeway, who showed emotion for the first time during the trial and shed tears. In Phoenix, Arizona, at the Maricopa County Superior Court, the sentencing of Michael Marin, a 53-year-old millionaire convicted of intentionally burning his $55 million mansion, unfolds. A professional with a background covering law, finance, and Wall Street trading, Marin's journey began after graduating from Yale University. His career path involved advising on intricate investments during the 1980s and 90s, with stretches at renowned financial institutions like Lehman Brothers, Merrill Lynch, and Salomon Brothers, primarily in their Asian divisions. Living the quintessential Wall Street trader lifestyle, Marin indulged in luxury, acquiring a multi-million-dollar Arizona estate and amassing an art collection featuring Pablo Picasso's etchings. He traversed the Far East extensively, piloting his own Cessna 310 and exploring exotic locales, including scaling the highest peaks across 6 continents, notably reaching Mount Everest in 2001. The high-paced life of a Wall Street trader is unpredictable. One moment represents luxury. The next, financial distress looms. Marin, too, succumbed to this instability, struggling to sustain mortgage payments for his $5 million estate in Phoenix's Tony Biltmore Estates. He resorted to arson. Prior plans to draw the house through a fundraiser fell flat. An investigation uncovered that he ignited the home from 4 distinct locations using an accelerant, placing phone books near packing boxes as kindling. Suspicion heightened when, amidst the blaze, Marin descended from the 2nd floor of his mansion fully suited in scuba gear, equipped with an oxygen tank. Fire Captain Jeff Peabody's report highlighted the odd discovery of the scuba setup, prepped next to a portable ladder stored in his upstairs master bedroom closet. Moreover, certain prized possessions were noticeably absent from the mansion during the fire. A divorced father of 4, Marin cherished possessions such as 18 Picasso drawings, safely housed in his Gilbert, Arizona residence during the Phoenix incident. Prosecutors portrayed Marin as a desperate individual, his bank account deteriorating from $900,000 to a mere $50 in July 2009. His monthly mortgage obligation stood at $17,250, with an impending balloon payment of $2.3 million. Additionally, he owed $2,500 monthly on another property and faced a $34,000 tax liability. The investigation unraveled Marin's declining finances as the motive behind the arson. Swiftly arrested, he faced charges of arson of an occupied structure, his once lavish social existence now replaced by the looming prospect of up to 16 years of incarceration.
Michael James Marin, guilty of arson of an occupied structure. We further find this offense is a dangerous felony because the offense involved the discharge, use, or threatening exhibition of fire, a deadly weapon, or dangerous instrument.
The security footage from the court captured a tragic turn in Marin's story. Moments after the verdict, visibly distraught, he buried his face in his hands and seemed to ingest something. Shortly thereafter, he drank water from a plastic bottle, reached for a tissue, experienced seizures, and collapsed. Despite being rushed to the hospital, Marin was pronounced dead, prompting an investigation by Arizona authorities. A canister labeled cyanide was recovered from his car, leading to a necessary inquiry. The Maricopa County Medic's office conducted a toxicology screen to ascertain any substances Marin might have ingested post-verdict. Carrie Gertsch, a spokesperson for the medical examiner, emphasized the need for a comprehensive evaluation before determining cause and manner of death, stating, "The body tells us the story. We reserve any conclusions until the investigation is complete." During the inquiry, a compelling detail emerged. Sheriff Joe Arpaio revealed that Marin's son received a delayed email after the trial, outlining instructions on handling affairs in case of an opposing court outcome and where to locate his car. It became evident that Marin had already planned to take his life and had conveyed detailed instructions to his son. Arpaio disclosed records indicating Marin's purchase of cyanide powder in 2011, just before the trial commenced. Speculation arose that Marin may have created swallow-able capsules from the cyanide powder to use in the courtroom. Arpaio, addressing a news conference, deliberated on Marin's motive for a public act, stating, "I don't know why he chose to do this publicly to commit suicide in front of cameras for the world to witness." Subsequently, the autopsy confirmed suspicions. Marin had indeed taken cyanide, as revealed by toxicology tests conducted by the Maricopa County Medical Examiner's Office. Heading to Massachusetts, the trial of Adam Lee Hall took center stage. In 2014, Hall, alongside his partners David Chaliu and Caius Viovis, faced charges and was ultimately convicted of first-degree murder. Their culpability extended to the tragic deaths of David Glasser, Edward Frampton, and Robert Chadwell. The trio's intrusion into Glasser's residence led to a hail of bullets, extinguishing the lives of these innocent individuals. The grim story unfolded further as Hall, Chaliu, and Viovis committed unthinkable acts, dismembering the victims' lifeless bodies and concealing them within plastic bags. Their gruesome journey continued to the isolated territory of Beckett, where they illegally buried the remains in an unassuming ditch. Weeks later, the authorities stumbled upon the outlandish scene, concluding a 13-day search for the mutilated corpses. Following his arrest, Adam Lee Hall faced charges of 3 counts of first-degree murder and kidnapping, yet the courtroom proceedings were not devoid of their own drama. During the prosecutor's final statement, detailing Hall's movements around the time of the victim's disappearance and murder, Hall erupted. Exclaiming with vulgar language, he strongly asserted his innocence, disrupting the proceedings.
Over there at the house on Sunday afternoon to meet with you.
20 miles away at a barbecue shop.
Hall, you will say no more during the remainder of the closing argument. You may proceed, Mr. Jacobs.
The district attorney's assertion during the trial was resolute. Adam Lee Hall deserved no mercy comparable to what he showed his victims. Amidst the courtroom proceedings, Rose Dawson recounted Hall's visit to her on the morning of the incident. Prosecutors painted a vivid picture, alleging Hall's involvement in the deaths of 3 Berkshire County men. Dawson recounted how Hall sought her help in obtaining bleach to clean his Buick. Together with Alexandra Ely, they washed the car, during which Dawson noticed a peculiar brown liquid seeping from it. Further, Dawson described an evening at the Hells Angels clubhouse, where Hall and his co-accused individuals reportedly celebrated in mockery and laughter at the victim's expense. Despite an exhaustive search, investigators couldn't recover the firearm mentioned by Dawson, although the district attorney attested that the victim's remains showed signs of gunshot wounds. During the trial, the defense attorney aimed to discredit Dawson's credibility by highlighting alleged past drug use, but the strategy failed to influence the jury, leading to Hall's guilty verdict. Additionally, an ex-girlfriend testified against Hall, revealing his alleged cover-up of 3 firearms within a bag of dog food on the night of the 2011 murder. This case unfolded dramatically, shuttling from county to county, involving multiple defendants. Following the conclusion of the trial, Hall received 3 consecutive life sentences, 1 for each victim.
Indictment 2011-139 count 11, charging the defendant with murder. You, upon your oath, do say that the defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree. So say you, Madam Forelady? Yes. So say you, all ladies and gentlemen, here? Yes.
As Judge Jeffrey Kinder delivered the sentence, Adam Lee Hall remained emotionless, his gaze fixed on the judge, absorbing the words that sealed the fate of his life.
In this case, revealed a level of depravity and disregard for human dignity beyond my experience.
Maurice Boucher's criminal activities and his role as the leader of the Hells Angels in Quebec were marked by extreme violence and an ongoing feud with rival gangs, notably the Rock Machine, during the 1990s. The murders of the 2 correctional officers, Pierre Rondeau and Diane Levine, were particularly shocking and appeared to be aimed at dissuading police informants from committing such heinous acts. His initial acquittal in 1998 by a jury was a controversial decision, leading to subsequent legal action and a rearrest. This time, with the aid of a police informer, new evidence emerged that contributed to his conviction. The dynamics of his trial were notably dramatic, likely due to the high-profile nature of the case and the tension surrounding his involvement with the Hells Angels. Boucher's notoriety came not only from his criminal actions, but also from the broader implications of his activities, impacting law enforcement approaches and public perception of biker gangs in Quebec during that period. His ruthless tactics and involvement in criminal conspiracies were central to the criminal justice system's efforts to combat organized crime in the region. The overturning of his initial acquittal and subsequent conviction highlighted the challenges of prosecuting high-profile criminal figures and the importance of robust legal processes in addressing such cases. Boucher's life and crimes continue to stand out as a significant chapter in Quebec's history of organized crime and law enforcement. Maurice Boucher's criminal legacy is indeed one marked by a relentless pursuit of power and control, both within and beyond the confines of prison. His notoriety extended to the manipulation of organized crime activities through proxies, notably his daughter, Alexandra Mongeau. Despite being imprisoned in a high-security prison, Boucher continued to exert influence and orchestrate criminal actions. His involvement in ordering murders even from behind bars and his unapologetic demeanor during legal proceedings portrayed a disturbing lack of regard for the law and society. Boucher's actions, even after his conviction and incarceration, demonstrated a steadfast commitment to maintaining his grip on the criminal underworld. The photograph capturing him flashing a peace sign at a fellow gang member's funeral was a stark portrayal of his audacity and disregard for authority, symbolizing his unyielding nature amidst violent circumstances. Justice. Eric Downs' assessment of Boucher as lacking prospects for rehabilitation echoes the sentiment that his criminal mindset and behavior seemed deeply deep-seated and unchangeable. Despite facing additional charges and sentences, Boucher's actions and demeanor suggested an almost disobedient acceptance of his fate. His impact on organized crime in Quebec and the brazenness with which he operated continue to stand as a testament to the complexities and challenges of combating deep-rooted criminal networks, even from within the confines of the criminal justice system. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.